What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Triple H podcast. Happy Hour Hoops, your one stop shop for enjoying a cold beverage and listening to our ice cold basketball takes. Everything NBA all the time. We got it. Today, we have a nice little show here. We will be talking all about the LeBron James, Isaiah Stewart altercation, the altercation at the Palace. We will be talking about some teams who have been a little banged up or injured or missing their star players to start the season and how they have fared so far. Some teams good, some teams not so good. Just talking about some teams on the rise, and then also a little Kevin Garnett blurb that we will talk about. That's all a tease for now. We're going to be talking a little bit about Kevin Garnett towards the end of the show. Jake, I welcome you in here. How we doing today, bud?
Oh, we are living the dream. Yeah, we got some comments for Kevin Garnett. I would actually no, that's a wrong way to phrase that. I don't want to comment anything to Kevin Garnett. He can agree. He can think whatever he wants. He's a terrifying man. I would not fuck with him at all. But no. This is it was a hiatus last week. I missed happy hour hoops. I'm sure everybody else missed us, but hopefully we weren't gone for too long. And for you here coming back, but happy. It was a very eventful weekend in hoops. I feel like it was quiet, a little bit quiet, and then the weekend just popped off. I'm excited to get into it tonight. So what are we starting with here, Donnie?
Yeah, so let's start with Lakers, but more importantly, like I mentioned, that LeBron and Isaiah Stewart action. So it was LeBron's second game back. His first game back was against the Celtics, and he lost to them. The Lakers lost on the road to the Celtics Friday, and then they were in Detroit on Sunday night. This is the way the NBA competes with the NFL. They just have LeBron James get into a scrum on Sunday night to compete with the NFL. But yeah, so I'm sure everyone's seen it by now. LeBron James, Isaiah Stewart, of the Detroit Pistons. They were trying to box each other out on a free throw. LeBron James extends his arm, pretty clearly punches. Some people are calling it elbow. I mean, it was clearly a closed fist is what hit Isaiah Stewart in the face. And then just madness from there. I mean, getting each other's face. Isaiah Stewart's eye and mouth is gushing blood. He pretends to stop going after the Lakers and LeBron James. Then he goes after them again, barreling over Pistons staff, assistant coaches, referees, teammates. Ultimately, does not get to LeBron. Both are disqualified from the game. Both receive suspensions. LeBron getting 2 games, Isaiah Stewart getting 2 games. LeBron getting 1. Jake, what do you just initial thoughts on the situation? I mean, we've had a few days to digest now. What are you thinking about it?
Well, the more and more it looked like the biggest thing I guess people were trying to decide between right at the beginning was if LeBron was intentionally throwing a shot at Isaiah Stewart on that. He's obviously, LeBron's not going to say, yeah, I tried to punch this guy in the face. Right. But I know I saw some arguments on Twitter going over. I know Ty B is back in the Rochester boy, Isaiah Stewart, calling LeBron dirty. I've seen, and he's not the only one, but I just want to give him the shout out in our Rochester boy. And it was definitely an aggressive play. I think that LeBron knew he was swinging back. They were the way they were boxing out. It was physical the whole game, and they were definitely frustrating LeBron. LeBron was in one of those moods where you could see the body language on the court, and we've seen that a lot early on since he's come back. There's been I know we've seen some clips of him just like Westbrook, a bad drive, and he just walks away, looks mad at him. Like there's just been those times on the court. We've seen him do it in the past where he just looks like disengaged. And obviously he's frustrated with the way that the season has started for them last night, talking about after the game or 2 nights ago in his press conference saying that they need to have a sense of urgency right now. Like it's November. LeBron took a break. He took a 2-week vacation in Miami in January. This man does not believe in any sense of urgency during football season. So that's what worries me the most. The biggest thing, I think LeBron, maybe it wasn't a dirty play, but it was definitely an aggressive play, and it was definitely him he was getting more and more frustrated during that game, and this is what it turned out to. And from the Isaiah Stewart side of it, I think he just thought, yo, this is my moment, bro. He's like,
Yeah,
LeBron, I just got into a scuffle with LeBron James. Like, I'm gonna make this point, like, to the rest of the league. Like, do not fuck with me. I'll go after LeBron. I mean, I feel like it was as simple as that. I don't think he was ever like, I don't think he ever really, maybe he did. Maybe he was like really just turned up and was going to go like beat the shit out of LeBron if he got through the 27 people in front of him. But I just feel like he was more trying to just show that he was tough more than like willing to start another Malice in the Palace or anything like that. But it was a scary, it was crazy scene to see. And like, especially in that arena, like everybody's immediate thoughts were like, oh, fuck.
I mean, it was only almost like a half-hour delay from the game, what all things considered. And once they, finally got everyone, removed who needed to be removed, cleaned up the blood, did all that, made their decision on who's getting kicked out, this and that. Yeah, I mean, I think it was, I'm not ready to sit here and say that LeBron's this dirty player now and that's how he should be viewed. I mean, cheap shots happen. I think it was a cheap shot. I mean, whether he was trying to hit him in the face or not, I don't know. But he clearly, had some intentions with that arm that he extended.
He was swinging, bro. He was swinging hard, for sure.
And we don't know what was happening before. But, I mean, this stuff happens. And ultimately, this is the way I see it. I think it's good for the NBA. And that it happened on Sunday night involving LeBron James, which this was only his second ejection ever in his career. I mean, this dude's been around for decades, and it's only the second time he's been ejected. So that automatically, I think, is a boost. It's like LeBron gets ejected. It happens on Sunday night. I joked about, them competing with the NFL, but in my opinion, I think that's a huge deal. Like, especially on Sundays during football season, no one is really tuning into the NBA. Especially if you think the Lakers and the Pistons, you would think that's an easy win for the Lakers. They did barely just get by, even after LeBron getting ejected this game. But overall, I think it's good for basketball. This stuff doesn't happen nearly as much. I mean, this used to be a regularity in like the 80s, even early 90s basketball. Like scrums like this happened all the time.
Yeah.
Very rare now, and very rare that it happens with superstars like LeBron James. So ultimately, I think, honestly, it was pretty cool from a fan perspective. I'm not, I have no ties to either of these teams, but I from a fan perspective and just, getting some hype and energy, whether it's good or bad around the league, I think, I don't know. I think it was pretty good for the league. It's cool. And as for the suspensions, man, I mean, we talked about it. I think, all the talking heads, including us and, all the way to the people on ESPN and SportsCenter, whatever. The whole trying to figure out the suspension thing is just crazy to me. Like, everyone's like, did they get it right? Who knows, dude? Like I just said, this doesn't happen enough. Like, we've never.
I don't know why LeBron. I don't know why I guess like Isaiah had the extra run after him, but they should have probably gotten the same amount of games. Like they were both at,
dude.
They
exactly.
were both
That's what I was gonna get to. It's like just give them both 1 or 2 games each and the same amount. And then no one will really question it. There'll still be people out there saying LeBron punched him, he started it. But then like Stewart deserves a suspension too. I'm not going to sit here and say he doesn't. He was barreling people over. Who cares if they work for the Pistons, dude? Like Jay Williams on ESPN was saying, "Oh, it was no Lakers players or no Lakers faculty." Dude, it doesn't matter. He was barreling over referees and people who worked for his own team. Like he still caused a ruckus. And yeah, so to try to diagnose this and dissect this, I just don't think you're gonna get anywhere. I think they should serve the same amount of games and then be done with it. But Isaiah Stewart gets 2, LeBron gets 1. That the league probably also doesn't want to keep LeBron off the court for longer than they need to because he's already been off. He's already missed a handful of games this year due to injury. He just came back. I don't think the league wants, their prized possession off the court for too long. But, I mean, really crazy stuff. But we can segue here while we're
Yeah.
talking about the Lakers into this next segment where we're talking about, people who have been missing their stars and how they fared so far. So we just mentioned, or I just mentioned, LeBron James missed a handful of games with that injury, just returned recently, and the Lakers aren't really off to the hottest start.
That's
What do you think's going on in LA?
I mean, shit,
That's a
bro.
loaded question.
Yeah, that is a loaded question. That is it has not looked good, and I think the worries that we had before the season kind of filtered around what would the rotation look like and what would it look like with LeBron James not on the floor, because I mean Russell Westbrook coming in, everybody just automatically assumed like, oh, him and AD are going to be amazing, like great pick and roll. They've got all these shooters on the sides, and they'll just make it work. Like they always make it work. Well, the transition to Russell Westbrook is never that smooth. I mean, if you look at every team that he's gone to, the first 3 months are rough. Like he does not. Usually, it's a feeling out process with the whole team. And when you add in the wrinkle that LeBron is in and out of the lineup, and they just haven't been able to get any chemistry with him and Russ at all. And this is not a whole like bashing Russ thing. I'm bringing him up a lot, but he was obviously the biggest piece that they added to this team and thought that they were going to be a championship contender because of. So he has to take as much blame.
And gave away a lot for him.
And guys that are playing fucking great in Washington and a team that is probably better than the Lakers right now.
They have a better record.
That's the crazy thing. They're 11-6. They split with the Heat. Do you think the Lakers could split with the Heat right now? I think the Heat would destroy the Lakers in a game right now.
In a series, yeah.
And you know what the problem is? The worst problem is that AD is a fucking monster, dude. He is every night. It's like 30 and 10 from AD, and it's just getting wasted. And you can hear the frustration in his mind too. So I that was a long-winded answer. You asked what was wrong with the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they are trying to thread such a thin needle with their roster construction in a way that, I mean, we really haven't seen it work. How many times do we see like the washed up vets all come together and just ball out? Like, I don't even want to say washed up because they're obviously still effective, but Braun is 36, has already had 2 injuries this year. And this is a guy that was never injured before. They're counting on Carmelo to be like this elite scorer again, which he can get to.
He's been one of the brightest.
And he's been great.
Too.
He's been great, yeah. But it's just like no other team. The Portland Trailblazers didn't want him in that role, and they were not a championship level team. And now the Lakers are having him in that role. I love Carmelo, but it's just they're pigeonholing like Rondo. Like, what's gonna happen to the team chemistry when all these injuries are back too? And like, is Rondo going to be on the outs of the lineup with Kendrick Nunn fully integrated and THT fully integrated? How does he react to that? Like the center rotation is Dwight is Dwight. Like he's solid. He's a good rebounder. He's not a guy you want on the floor all the time though. No. DeAndre Jordan was washed last year. Like he was gone. We don't really know what we're getting out of Ariza or anything. I just think that the construction is it was weird to start. They were trying to force a lot of things and hope that Russ and LeBron could mask it. And they haven't found the chemistry that they needed to find. They needed LeBron to be healthy playing in these games. And I don't know, man. I don't know if the Russ and LeBron thing can work. What do you think about like those two on the floor? I mean, we've only seen it a little bit, but what do you think? Like, can they find a way to coexist, or is it going to be just look this gross all year?
I don't know. And yeah, so ultimately, I think where they're at right now, a big part of it is LeBron missing some time and then coming back, and then obviously this happening Sunday with this suspension now. I had the pleasure of watching the Lakers in person on Friday night, and AD, LeBron, and Russ were all playing in that game. But before I answer your question about Russ and LeBron, I do want to say this because you brought up some of the older guys and how this rotation is going to look down the stretch. Like I was worried that this wasn't going to be a close game, meaning I thought the Lakers had a potential to blow out the Celtics on Friday night because no Jaylen Brown for the Celtics, no Rob Williams. And like I said, they had LeBron back, AD, Russ, etc. They had Avery Bradley in their starting lineup, dude. And like
Yeah.
we're talking about Wash guy. I love AB. I mean, he was, I grew up watching Avery Bradley. He's awesome. He played insane ball at Texas with
Hmm.
Kevin Durant. But dude, like Avery Bradley, it shouldn't be in a starting lineup in the NBA right now. I'm sorry. And then, like you mentioned, THT, I think it's way too many minutes for them. Yeah, I mean their roster construction as a whole and their rotations are pretty scary right now. I just wanted to say that. But the Russ and LeBron thing, I get why people think it wouldn't work, and right now it doesn't look pretty. So right now, I think it's clearly not working. And what I noticed in person was like Braun would have his way, and he had some scoring moments in the first and second quarter where he was getting buckets at will or setting up AD in the pick and roll, and Russ was able to do that too. And then in the third quarter, dude, Westbrook was like the only one scoring for the Lakers, it seemed, in that game against the Celtics. I mean, he was getting to the basket. He was obviously, kind of taking advantage of Dennis Schroeder when he was in there. He was actually hitting his jump shots in the third quarter, but it almost looked like for some reason they just can't, for whatever reason, like coexist in both, like, I don't know, even like switching possessions and being the primary ball handler. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is that as simple as everyone's saying, like both these guys are just so ball dominant. It's
Yeah.
tough for them to play together at the same time. Um, so yeah, I mean it's definitely going to be something to watch. I think talent wise, this big three that they have, the 360 or whatever they call themselves, AD, Braun, and Russ. I think it's still a little too early. Like they're 9-9 right now, the 9 seed. LeBron's missed a handful of games, but I think if you can get all these guys clicking, I mean, we know the talent's there. I'm still willing to give them a little bit of time, but I mean, the Western Conference isn't really,
It's
a
not
conference you want
conducive
to
for
be.
this environment.
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
It's not, the Lakers don't want to be sitting back and waiting right now, but that's kind of what they have to do. They have to see if they have something here. It's still, in my opinion, too early to tell, especially with LeBron missing games. They don't have, their correct rotation that they want. So yeah, I mean, it's ugly right now. And a tough start for the Lakers, tough for the Lakers fans to watch this. I'm not giving up on the Russ Braun experiment just yet, but so far, 18 games in, does not look great.
Yeah, I'm very happy you brought up Avery Bradley. He was someone I wanted to mention and forgot in the middle of that because it's amazing that he is like starting. He got cut. He got waived by the Warriors, and maybe
Yeah.
and we're about to get into the Warriors. That might be a good segue to get into a more exciting team to watch.
Yes.
But he couldn't get burned on another team, and now he's playing starting minutes for you. Like that can't be what you're basing your team off of. I mean, look at some of these things that are troubling. For the Lakers here, they're shooting 34% from three, that's average, league average, whatever. Like that you would want that to be better with the team that they have around them, but it's fine. But they're only they're 19th in the league in made threes a game. They're 23rd in the league in free throw percentage, and they turn the ball over. Only one team in the NBA turns the ball over more than the Lakers. So if you don't hit threes, you don't make your free throws, you turn the ball over all the time. And also they are only 13th in rebounding. So they don't dominate on the boards to get extra possessions from those turnovers. They're 27th. So fourth, only three teams more than them have average more fouls a game. So they're sending the other team to the line all the time. Like
Jeez.
it's brutal. And you also teams are getting to the line 23 times on average against them. And it's just in basketball, it's turnovers and it's free throws. Like if you lose
That's a lot of free throws to give up, dude.
That's a lot too. It's a lot of free every night. I mean, if you lose a turnover battle, you lose a free throw battle, and you lose a rebounding battle every night. You're not winning a lot of basketball games in the NBA.
Especially where they're perimeter shooting. I mean, it's definitely below average as a team. So yeah,
let's get into the more exciting
big yikes. Big yikes for the Lakers. Big hooray for for the Golden State Warriors.
That's the best way to put it.
Yes.
We're still taking we're still much on our victory lap from last
Yeah.
episode about the Warriors. It was 2 weeks ago, and then we probably left that show. We're like, I hope that was right about the Warriors. And yep, it is. They're 15-2. They have the best point differential in the NBA. They're 9-1 in their last 10. 9-1 at home. Obviously, they only have one loss each place then with 2 losses. They are dominating the league. Steph is averaging 28 points a game again, shooting 96% on the free throw line, just like absurd numbers, 40% from 3.
I know that's I honestly it's so crazy that he can do that, man. I mean, you watch games and this dude's taking 13 threes some nights and he's
Yep.
shooting over 40%. Like that is it's bananas. I mean, dude, they're the best team in the league. They have the best record.
Mm-hmm.
They have the best record in the Western Conference. They're the number 1 in the NBA.com's power rankings. And we did peg this from the beginning. I don't think either of us thought they would get out to this hot of a start, but we said this team could be a contender. And
yeah, we didn't know what it looked like at the start. We were counting on Clay coming back and them coming into form. Apparently, they don't need Clay Thompson, which is the scariest thing. That's for the rest of the league.
They have a guy named Jordan Poole, and that's why right now they don't need Clay. I saw something yesterday, and it was his comparison just to a season ago. He was averaging 10 points per game. He's now averaging 18. His shooting percentage from the field was like 33 to 35, I want to say, and it's 45.8 this year. I mean, he's just doing everything for this group. He's being that, second, third option, whatever you want to call it, because obviously Andrew Wiggins so quietly averages 19 points per game for this group.
Dude,
I mean, Wiggins, for the amount of people who say he was a letdown, he bounced around from teams, and now he found a home in the Warriors. I mean, Andrew Wiggins is a very good wing player. I think so many teams would love to have him. Talking about the Lakers rotation, guys, they would love to have an Andrew Wiggins on that roster. He gets a lot of hate, and I really don't understand why. He literally averages near 20 points for his career. And you have him as a third option, probably going to be a fourth option when Clay gets back. Like, I mean, there's just not many negative things we can say about this team right now.
No, I don't. The thing that people, I guess, underestimated going into the year was the player development that the Warriors are able to do. They've preached it the past couple years, but it really hasn't been like. I mean, we haven't seen it. It hasn't been long enough. Like we obviously, Steph, Draymond, Clay, they were all drafted by the Warriors. They've been there the whole time, and they turned into success stories. So everybody believed that there's a good infrastructure there. But that was also a different coach when those guys started out there. Now Steve Kerr coming in, so it's a little bit of a different infrastructure and everything else that they're trying to build. Bob Myers came in after that as well. But they're proving that they can still do it. That they're basically the new Spurs. I mean, Poole, like you said, Poole is their second best player this year. Damian Lee coming off the bench. Like no one thought anything of him except being Steph's, brother-in-law. And he's like one of their biggest contributors. Gary Payton the second, has been outstanding as a guard for them off the bench. Kuminga's looked amazing for what you can imagine. You like Gary Payton? I love Gary Payton, man.
So sick. I heard, I mean, this is like kind of obvious, but I heard one of the announcers the other night after one of his dunks call him GP2 for some reason. I don't know. That's just like such a sick nickname.
It's baller.
Gary Payton, obviously son of Gary Payton. The Glove is what people call him. So we have the Glove 2.0. And I remember being excited when he was on this roster. I didn't think he would get notable minutes, and here he is averaging just under 7 points a game, averages 14 minutes a game. I mean, he is just sick, dude. Like the fact that they're getting contributions from a guy like him, and he is such a high flyer. Some of the dunks he's had this year, and obviously it's just so perfect if Steph Curry is the guy passing you the ball, and he just he puts it on a dime. And when they get out on the break, it's already exciting enough when you have Curry hitting 40-footers all night, and then you can get out on the fast break with guys like Iggy, Wiggins, and now Gary Payton, GP2. It's just so electric, man. And and I'm sure you were gonna get to this too, but like, or I think you were just getting to this, the whole Kuminga and
Oh
Moody
yeah,
thing, dude. Like they're
yeah,
barely even playing, and two rookies who are fantastic talents, and they arguably like don't even need them right now. Not that it's like a negative that they're on the team. They're just playing so well that they
yeah,
literally don't need these, you know, pretty high powered rookies that they drafted.
yeah. And when those guys can become contributors, like what the league's just gonna be like, what the fuck? Like if Kuminga turns into a superstar, like if he reaches his ceiling, and
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry, the thing about Steph is not like he's gonna be able to do what he's doing until he's like 40, as long as he can stay in
Yeah.
shape and stay healthy. Like he's in great shape. He runs around like he's super got great conditioning, and he's gonna be able to shoot forever. And he's never been a big guy. It's not like he ever needed his size for anything or his physical ability. It's
Nope.
just gonna be like endurance, and that's something you could keep going. So like we talked about before the season, like they're trying to make a bridge to the future. And also, if Kuminga and Moody hit like right away, they could maximize this and be a power team again. And they don't even need those fucking guys, and they're just like, nah, you know what? We just got Steph. Like he'll be enough. They are first in the league, and contrary to the Lakers, first in 3 points made, fifth in 3-point percentage. They also turn the ball over a shit ton, but that's the Warriors have always turned the ball over. Even 2016, I think they were one of the worst teams in the league in turnovers because they
Yeah.
just try shit all the time.
They
But
play
teams turn
very
the ball.
fast too.
Yeah, the teams turn the ball over against them a ton too. So they create
Right.
havoc on defense. They've been a great defensive rebounding team, which is a surprise because they don't have a lot of size, and obviously Wiseman hasn't even played yet this year. And he's obviously the
We'll
big
get to
linchpin
him.
down there. Yeah. And teams are shooting, they're shooting well against them, but you would expect that with the kind of lineups they deploy and the switching and everything. That's the shots that are pretty much available. But it's I don't they just look like the Warriors again, and that's the most simple way to put it. But if you watched freewheeling Warriors basketball 2015-16 specifically before Durant got there, it's just beautiful ball movement, shooters open all over the place, and Steph's really the orchestrator of it. And that's what's happening. These guys are hitting their shots, they're doing their job. Wiggins, I love that you mentioned Wiggins. Wiggins has been awesome. Like Wiggins could be like
So
a
good.
borderline all-star in the league in the West this year. I don't think he
Mm-hmm.
would be, but like he's just playing that well.
Just playing like it.
Um,
Yeah.
but let's talk about Clay and Wiseman coming back, because this is about teams that don't, they're missing guys still, and we were expecting the Warriors to be good, but maybe not this good. And we know
No.
Klay Thompson returning either on December 20th or December 23rd, right before Christmas Day. So what are you expecting to see with this team from Clay and then Wiseman coming back soon? Like, how good can they be? Are they getting 70 wins again?
Dude, like very possible. Especially, I mean, we already talked about the Lakers, but I mean, outside of a few other teams, there's really not that many teams that are clicking as well as they are.
Yeah.
Well, one in the entire league, but more importantly, the Western Conference. So they're kind of sitting on a hill by themselves right now. And I mean, with the return of Klay Thompson, even if I mean, I feel like this point's being exhausted at this point, but like even if we have a 75%, 80% of Klay Thompson when he returns, and even if he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get back to 100% Klay by the end of this season, like the way they're playing right now, that to me at least doesn't even matter. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're going to do, what people are speculating on with Klay coming off the bench and what does the rotation look like. Look, I'll leave that to Steve Kerr, but I'd be willing to bet that when Klay returns, they're returning him because he's ready to play, and I think he goes right back into the starting lineup. I know and maybe play him, Poole, and Curry all in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Poole has to, become non-existent when Klay's back, but I don't see a world where Klay Thompson isn't next to his splash brother when he returns. So I think Klay goes right back into the starting lineup, and like I just said, even if he's not 100%, we already said they're first in three
Mm-hmm.
pointers made. They're they're just gonna hold that all season long because I think Klay has something to prove. He's missed about 2 years of basketball now, coming off two brutal
Yeah.
injuries. He looks ready to go. I mean, you can tell by
Oh
his
yeah.
posting on social media, everything in between. He's ready, man, and yeah, I think it's scary. Honestly, the rest of
Oh
the
yeah.
league should be scared. Some flashbacks to the 2015-16 Warriors coming.
It's gonna
Scary
be
stuff, man.
fucking wild. It's gonna be fucking wild to see. I can't wait for that's gonna be such a great night of basketball. Whatever game he comes back, like it's gonna be a celebration around the
And
league.
then
Just to see that guy back on the court.
we have Wiseman, right? Still
Yeah,
20
I don't know
years
when that.
old.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not really sure on his timetable to return either, but obviously they're doing it without him. And I want to ask your flat out opinion on James Wiseman here, and because I'm seeing a lot that it doesn't like a lot of people saying it doesn't matter that they don't have Wiseman right now, and like why everyone's like why are people saying oh the Warriors have Clay and Wiseman coming back, like his rookie year was a disaster and he's not like really going to do much for this team. It's
yeah.
dude, the kid's 20 years old, a 7-footer
And
who proved that
he's
he can
played like
shoot from
10
outside.
games.
Yeah,
He's played like 10 games the last 3 years. 10
like
competitive
give him a
basketball
break,
games.
dude. He's a supreme talent. Like at least maybe he hasn't shown that he's a great talent in the NBA yet, but we know who James Wiseman is. Like this dude can play basketball. He can play it at a high level. He's 20 years old, 7-footer,
Mhm.
can shoot. Like even like worst case, he's still an asset and they could trade him, right? Like I just want to get your take on Wiseman here because I don't really understand that narrative.
Yeah, I think everything you just said is 100% correct. The kid has not played. He played 7 games in college before getting suspended for the year in what was literally, I will go down. I'm going to do a story on this someday or something. Like, I promise you this week where the NCAA was getting ripped apart in the Supreme Court, right? Remember last year when all those Supreme Court hearings were going on, Supreme Court basically told them like, no, you need to pay these guys. Like, this is stupid. Like, you guys are fucking, this is ridiculous. I don't know how you've gotten away with this. Like, it was so bad for the NCAA. That same week, in a span of 2 days, they suspended James Wiseman for the season for whatever, accepting improper benefits, getting helped out to, have a house to live in by Penny Hardaway. Like, God forbid, Penny, and of course, he's a great basketball player, sure. Penny was literally just like paying for like their food, like because they didn't have money, whatever. That's besides the point. They suspend Wiseman for that, and then the next day suspend Chase Young for till the end of the year for whatever his bullshit signatures or what. I don't even remember what it was. It doesn't matter what it was. They literally did. They were like, who are 2 prominent basketball and football players that we can suspend for something, because every player in our sport can get suspended. Everybody takes money from boosters, but let's suspend these 2 guys. So Wiseman got fucked over then, and he tears his meniscus at the end of last year, and he has to play. Anybody who had a bad year last year, like, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. Rookie,
Me too.
vet, anybody. It was the weirdest situation to ever step into.
They didn't have a summer league, dude. They didn't have any pre-draft stuff like that.
Nothing. And they're playing in front of fucking empty. When's the last time any of those dudes played in front of empty arenas? Like when they were 6 years old. Like everything about last year was just so weird for every single sport. I basically have thrown out everything that happened last year. And the kid, like you said, the kid's 20 years old. Like, big man take a while. And this is a good segue to get into our next topic and guy to even talk about who just returned, DeAndre Ayton. People were out on Ayton right at the beginning of his career too. Like, oh my God, how could he get picked first? This is insane. Why would Phoenix do this? And then last year, a couple years in, he finally is figuring shit out. He's one of the most impactful players in the NBA playoffs and almost helps lead his team to an NBA title. And it would have been, it's crazy that how much people jump to conclusions on big men. So I think Wiseman's got plenty of time to make an impact, and he doesn't have to do a lot for the Warriors either, which is going to be the nice thing for him. But let's get into the Suns then, and let's get into Ayton, who's just coming back. He's looked okay on the start back, but the Suns have been, just pretty damn good again. Like pretty much what I saw last year. They look honestly like they're just picking up. So do you think it's real? Like they were the 4 seed last year, obviously had some breaks to get to the playoffs or get to the finals, I should say, to get through the playoff field. Ayton has just come back and he's kind of completing their look. Can they contend with the Warriors all year long? Are they the clear number 2? And is there a chance that they could overtake this Warriors team?
Yeah. At this point, I don't see them overtaking the Warriors team, especially like we mentioned, they have Clay coming back and they're already playing this good. But I will say, if we're gonna do our victory lap about the Warriors, I was a little lower. I think you were too on the Suns this year, and it's
Yeah,
still early. I think all we said was that we don't know if they're clear cut can be in the contender conversation going into the season, just because you mentioned. I mean, some weird stuff had to trickle down for the Suns to make it to the finals last year, and obviously that's transpired, and we can't take that away from them because they still made it there. They still were the runner up. But I didn't see them, performing this good, and I guess getting out to this hot of a start. We mentioned they did it without Ayton. He
hmm
returns. Now they're currently on a 13-game win streak as of what's today, November 23rd. They are on
hmm
a 13-game win streak. Chris Paul is averaging over 10 assists a game. I mean, yeah, like they have a lot of this momentum from last year, and I think this is a motivated group. So
for
I
sure.
mean, until someone else really starts showing some serious strides in the Western Conference, I think the Suns have that. I mean, they're number 2 in the power rankings for the whole league right now, but yeah, I don't think anyone's really taken away that 2 spot in the Western Conference from them anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't. I think that's. I mean, I guess the biggest team that you would talk to, and you're not going to find it on this podcast, so don't worry about it. But the biggest team that you would think to contend is probably the Jazz, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're the team who had the great regular season last year. They had a great regular season beforehand, but no one trusts the Jazz, bro. Like I'm not going to trust the Jazz until I see them in the NBA Finals or the Western Conference Finals in a relevant position. Right now, though, Phoenix, they're on a 13-game win streak, bro. Like they literally started the season 1-3 and have just turned on the burners. They're right behind the Warriors. I'm trying to look up their schedule right now. I want to see when they play the Warriors. I know they play them on Christmas Day, which will, if that is, the second game Klay Thompson's back and these teams have lost a combined 7 games by then or whatever they're on pace for. I mean, it's going to be crazy. Okay, so oh wow. No, actually we're getting three times in the next month the Suns and the Warriors play. They play on
Oh, let's
Tuesday, November
go.
30th. So next Tuesday night, actually,
Oh,
at home.
yeah.
So they'll play them then. Then they play again on Friday of next week, December 3rd, 10 o'clock in Golden State, and then Christmas Day, 5 o'clock in Phoenix.
Let's go.
Warriors. So we're gonna find out a lot. I guess I'm gonna wait and see what they'll look like compared to the Warriors because they got them. This is a tough stretch though. It's not tough. It's tough to go to Cleveland with the injuries that are piling up there, but they're in Cleveland Wednesday night. And then back to back against both the New York teams before they play those 2 Warriors games. Sandwiched in between the Warriors games is a Pistons matchup, so that's pretty
Isaiah
nice.
Stewart's coming for him. He'll be
Right.
back by then. He's gonna try
Ayton
to
better
fight
be worried.
Steph. Yeah.
Ayton
All
better
right.
be worried.
Not Steph. I meant Booker.
Either way.
Yeah.
So the rest I'll just run down quick through December because it's a pretty tough schedule. They've got San Antonio after that Warriors game, Boston, at the Clippers, at Portland, home to Washington, home to Charlotte,
Oof.
at the Lakers. They got 2 Oklahoma City games in here that are pretty easy, but home to Golden State, obviously we talked about on Christmas, home to Memphis, at Boston, New Year's Eve. So they've got, and then even after that, it's at Charlotte. So the next month is a huge stretch for the Suns. That's a lot of playoff teams that they're playing, a lot of big matchups, and the 3 matchups with the Warriors. I mean, shit, bro. We didn't look that up beforehand even. Like that's going to be great television, great theater for NBA fans.
Yeah, talk about competing with the NFL. That's the way to do it right there.
Hell yeah. That's a great Tuesday night next week for sure. So I think that they're the second best team in the West. I just think the Warriors are so fucking good that it's going to be really hard to keep pace with them, especially once Klay comes back. But this is like Chris Paul, man. Like this is the rivalry. It's Chris Paul and it's Steph. Hates the Warriors
revenge
more
tour
than
for
anything.
CP.
It could be. It could
This
be.
is
It could
like
just be
his
their time.
12th revenge tour of his career. Just coming up so short the season before and pissed
There's
off
been
the
a lot
next
of them.
season. And something else I want to credit the Suns with. I mean, this is a combination of great coaching, great management, um, just the rotations coaching is putting out there, and
Yeah.
then obviously the players too. But I think the rotation guys and the way the rotation guys are being used and the new additions to this team are actually a big deal because while I haven't watched too many Suns games this year, like we talked about last year, I mean, time and time again, how guys like Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges, I mean, he's a locked in starter now, and he gets over 30 minutes a game. But just some of the guys like that, even like Saric and Kaminsky, were good at times last year. But they brought in Landry Shamet and Havel McGee, who McGee was actually pretty huge for this roster while Ayton was out. And I think he did a lot of good things. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's averaging like 10 points a game for this group.
Yeah, he was very impressive in his time there.
And then Shamit's a guy who, I mean, I think he's averaging less than 10 a game and doesn't play all that much for them, but he's a guy who can get it going and score 20 on any given night. And then, they have guys like Cameron Payne, who was excellent through the playoffs last year. I think Frank Kaminsky already has a 30-point game this year. They just have a lot of depth at, pretty much every position. And I mean, just willing guys coming off the bench. I mean, we talked about that is a huge negative for the Los Angeles Lakers. And all the best teams out there have great depth and have good guys who can come in and produce. And the Suns proved that they had that last year, and they have it this year too.
Yeah, I think that, and they've been built so well. This might just be like the rivalry for this year and maybe the next couple of years, like two of the veteran, the champion who's been there, and then this young. I mean, Chris Paul not very young, but the young upstart Suns who are just battling and got a taste of it while they're gone. Like it shapes up their division rivals, so they play against each other a bunch. This could be the brewing of a great rivalry to start and leading off with it. I'm excited to see what the Suns are going to offer in these games and what they're doing the rest of the year. So let's get into it. This is your moment, Dunny. We've been talking bad on the Celtics all year long. I just looked at your notes to see what you wrote down for the Celtics. You just wrote, "Ooh, baby." So I'm gonna let you run away with it. Jaylen Brown's back. Tatum is being efficient again. He's got 10 assists the other night, or 8 assists, whatever it was last night. How are you feeling about your Boston Celtics after this last week?
Oh, I am feeling great. They're 8-3 in their last 11. Tatum started so slow. He was still having over 20 a game because that's what Tatum does. He's a scorer, but his shooting was poor.
Mm-hmm.
Get this, dude. Tatum is second in the entire league in 30-point games right now.
Wow, who's first?
Like, I feel like I'm pretty sure it's Steph.
Steph, yeah, that was figured,
but that's crazy. He scored 30 in 4 straight games right now. I'm glad that the Celtics made this list because although JB wasn't out for a while, it was kind of right when they started out really poorly. Then they lost JB. Then they lost Rob Williams, who maybe around the league still isn't wildly known yet. But I mean, Rob Williams
is so important to them, man.
Yeah, he's a starter on this team now, and he is great. Him and JB actually have the best plus minus on the Celtics right now for the season. They're 1-2. So I'm glad, they qualified for this segment. But, yeah, I mean, they got Jaylen Brown back for the first time last night. He looked great. He scored 10 points in 65 seconds at one point in that third quarter. And I think what we do, although we did rag on the Celtics a little bit because they started disappointing. I mean, this is a week and a half ago, we were having the same conversation about the Celtics that we had about the Lakers at the top of this show. Disappointing. They had no true identity. Where was this defense that the new coach was supposed to bring in? And now we've seen it. Since November 3rd, I believe, they're first in defensive rating. And obviously small sample size, only about 20 days. But they've had quite a few games in there, and they've really flipped the script. When Brown first got injured, The hamstring and Rob with the knee, I was really worried because I was seeing a lot of last year because first last year it was Tatum with COVID, then Smart with the calf strain,
Mm-hmm.
then Brown with COVID, and then ultimately Brown with the hand slash wrist injury that took him out of the playoffs. And I was like, oh no, like here we go again. But
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Schroeder, dude, he has been so
He's been
huge for this
awesome.
team. Tatum's finally figuring it out. Brown comes back into the lineup last night, didn't skip a beat.
Nope.
And then Al Horford, 35-year-old Al Horford, looking like he's 25 out there, just doing whatever it takes to get a dub on any given night. Horford is. So yeah, I mean, just flat out, this is a team that just flipped the script, and it's really great. They're the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Just a few days ago, they were like the 10th, 11th seed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we said this, and like you said, we ragged on them a bit, but I think we also did say that it's early when we were
Yeah.
first talking about the Celtics and new coach, new players. Let the adjustments settle in, and they have, and you hope a team like this can keep this going because I think they do have the talent to be top 3, 4 seed in this Eastern Conference. Obviously, it's going to be tough going. The East is showing out this year, but that's where I'm at with the Siege right now, man.
Definitely. I mean, definitely not a play-in team. This team,
Mm-mm.
me and you were both so high enough on them. We didn't think that was a thing. And yeah, it was
No,
just a hellacious start to the year. They weren't. I don't think that these guys were used to the differences that going through an NBA season without Brad yet. Like they've been
yeah,
so used to hearing that voice. I think it just took a while to like not to just buy in. I mean, and that takes time, but they've definitely bought in now. I mean, the intensity just looks different on defense, especially. And they're kind of understanding the rotations more and everything else. Like you can just tell it's clicking. Jaylen Brown is shooting 49% from the field, and he's
yeah,
shooting 40% from three. and averaging in just basic 80% from the free throw. So no 50 40 90, but he's damn close to it right now. And the fact that they looked so good without him, and the the thing about him coming into this lineup is we've been waiting to see who the playmaker is going to be, right? Like, is it going to be Tatum? Is it going to be Brown? Is it going to be Smart, Schroeder? Like, who's going to be the guy really facilitating? And I think while Brown was out, Tatum and Smart both took those roles on, and they really figured out a way to like work within the offense and be able to play off each other and make those playmaking opportunities. So when Jaylen showed up last night, he didn't really have the ball in his hands a whole lot. Like it wasn't like he wasn't initiating
no,
as
he
much as
wasn't.
I remember from the beginning of the year, where it was basically him initiating or Tatum initiating. They're using him cutting. They were playing him off ball more, and it just flowed better. And I think that
Yep.
that's what the team needed to decide to do. He didn't need to empower both of them. He needed to empower one of them to run the show and the other guy to just go do what he needs to do. And Tatum's such a great playmaker. I just don't think he really looks for it himself unless he's like directed. I think that's just him being young still too, is him not having like the full wherewithal to be like, oh, like I need this tonight or I need to do this tonight. As we've seen, like he can choose to be very inefficient on some nights and not realize he doesn't have it going. Like the in-game adjustments are what I'm saying, but he's starting to do it and being empowered by Ime to do it. And I think with Brown now his biggest weapon back, that might be something that they can unlock more and use more.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree, man. I mean, like I think to start the year, their biggest issue offensively anyway was just like too much ISO play. And I
Yeah.
think that's like so easy for sports analysts and just people who critique the NBA. Like that's so easy for people to just jump on and it's apparent. And
Yeah.
if an offense is looking bad and there's a lot of ISO play, like that's sometimes it works with ISO, but a lot of the time it doesn't. And I think Brown and Tatum are both to blame for that. But now you see it, and you're right. It did start to happen once Brown was out on his injury and they were shorthanded. But it's Horford's touching it a few times. Schroeder's got the ball in his hands. They're doing some dribble handoffs, and then it goes into an ISO. So they're not. It's not Tatum dribbling up and he's ISOing right away. Like they're doing it, getting the defense to switch, getting a smaller guy on Tatum, then they'll give it to him in the post.
Mm-hmm.
Or if a big switches onto Tatum, then they'll let him just go to work and they'll clear out. And then, yeah, like you mentioned, Brown was playing a lot of off ball last night. It looked
Yeah.
great. And the opportunities that he made for himself were off a couple of defensive rebounds that he just took it and went. And that's, I mean, that's a strength of this team. So, yeah, I mean, really looking forward to watching the Jays the rest of the way and hoping the C's can stay improving on this.
Yeah. I think what I've learned about Jaylen Brown is that he is not like, it's not like if he doesn't have the ball in his hands all the time, he's going to complain. Like, I don't think he'd ever really complain unless something was like really bad. He might be like, he'd do it in a very like smart, intelligent way to like get it out there. He would, but that's just because that's the kind of guy he is. But he'll never complain to do that. But when he does have the ball, he's going to the rim or he's going to put up a shot. Like he has a mentality that he is better than everybody out there and he's going to get to the bucket and do what he needs to do. And most of the time that works. So I think that like it's just Ime like understanding how to make the pieces work. You know, you got to learn how to deal with these guys. You got to learn what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what they like, where they like the ball. Do they like the ball on the post? Do they like the ball up here? Do they like to be on the ball or do they like to be cutting? And, you know, all like you said about Jaylen, does Jaylen like to run off a transition? Does he like to slow it down off a transition? Whatever. Like Ime has to learn all those things. You can talk to those guys all summer. You can have as many conversations. You can watch as much film as you want. It doesn't replicate seeing them in practice every day, working with them in practice every day, coaching them in games, like all that. Like this is the time where he can actually see and put these guys into their positions of strength. And it was a very small sample. Obviously last night it's a very bad team, but in Jaylen's return, I really liked what I saw offensively, just the kind of flow and the way that they kind of structured it. And I think it's encouraging going forward. I mean, this team offensively, like it's been a struggle to start, but they're 12th in points. They're 8th in the league in net rating, which is so obviously that's indicative of a pretty good basketball team. And they've got 4 guys in double-digit scoring averaging right now. And Marcus Smart is at 9.9, so he's right outside there. And Robert Williams is at 9.4. And even Grant Richardson, they might as well be Grant Richardson, right? Josh Richardson is at 8.9. So they're getting great contributions from the bench too right now. It's a pretty even scoring across the board, even with Tatum and Brown dominating in points. And Brown's been out obviously, so that's probably increased it a little bit for everybody. But I think the contributions are starting to come. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to throw an honorable mention here. Won't spend too much time on it, but the Clippers, man, they're another team starting the season without their star, no Kawhi, and they're 10-7 right now, 4 seed out west. So, you know, we got to give credit where credit's due. Paul George is playing really well. Reggie Jackson is.
They got Ibaka back now.
Yeah, and dude, that's what I was gonna mention. Like real quickly, I feel bad, but it seems like the Clippers, you know, since I was little when I first started watching the NBA, they're just the team, not every year, but they're the team that like without fail is just so close to being like a championship team, but they're just for whatever reason, like those teams, Lob City teams with CP, Blake, and DeAndre, and then we had Kawhi and PG for the last couple of the years, and now no Kawhi this year, and even last year, like they had Ibaka with the back, and he was banged up last year. He's banged up this year. I think they just lost Nick Batum due to COVID protocols. So this is a team I feel like just can't catch a break for like my lifetime. It seems when I think about the Clippers. But yeah, well, you know, they get some credit on the Triple H podcast here. So go Clippers, 10-7 without Kawhi. Pretty impressive.
Love it. Love it. Gotta respect the Buffalo Braves. We are in Trainwreck Sports here, so you know, former Braves gotta do it. I still should have one of my biggest college regrets is not buying the Kawhi Buffalo Braves jersey for Darties at all. It was I could have put it up somewhere, I guess, and this is not going to be my home permanently, but somewhere in my next home I could have put it up somewhere, I guess, hung it around. True. But I didn't feel you, but that would have been a nice one. So yeah, partial to the Clippers for that. Clippers will look great. PG looks great. No slander from PG on this podcast yet this year.
No, not yet.
So we're good with that. But KG, he might be about to get something. Let's just let it roll. Let's let it go, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, we'll play then explain.
Let's see here.
That's hard. Oh man. Magic at 1, just because he's 6'9", he can see everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I gotta go MJ. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put Cole on my 2. Cole gonna be my 2. Oh man, this where it starts to get weird.
Wait, hold on, wait. You left it.
I got Cole at my 2.
He said what he said.
I got Cole at my 2.
He said what he said. Don't argue with the man.
I got Cole at my 2.
Let him get it off, and then you.
Right. I know you're going to say MJ. I'm supposed to do that. Shout to MJ because he the God and we copied him and shit, but I got Cole at my 2.
Come on.
I really want to put AI in here somewhere, but I'm going for a taller team because we're going to switch everything. You know what I'm saying? KD at my 3. You know what I'm saying? KD's he's like a real fade. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm putting I'm gonna go with Wilt. I'm going with Wilt. I'm going with the still that 5. I'm playing the 4. Okay. We're switching everything. 3s, 4s, and 5s, switching everything. That's how I'm coming.
So that was Kevin Garnett's all-time top 5 on the $1 million worth of game podcast hosted by Gilly the King. Yeah, pretty crazy stuff there, Jake. Huh? Leaving not only Jordan but LeBron also out of his top 5, which I can respect because he put in KD. So I'm not really too mad about that one, but he does go on to say that his first 2 off the bench would be Jordan and Vince Carter, which is just like so random.
I love how he said, I'm going to switch everything. He's like, I almost put AI though. I was like, yo, AI is 6 foot. He's not switching on to anybody.
He said 3 through 5, we're switching everything because it's 3 legit 7-footers when you have KD at the small forward and Wilt Chamberlain at the 5, which is also pretty questionable if you ask me. But Jake,
Wilt would get the buckets though. I mean, that'd be the easiest Wilt's ever had.
You can't go wrong with Wilt, but I mean, for sure questionable. Jake, what are your initial thoughts? And then if you have a 5, give me yours.
I think basketball top 5s are really hard now because there's been so many damn good players. Like I've changed mine like a couple times while we've been sitting here. Like I've been thinking about it. So I had some guys on there. I feel like there's 3 guys on here who have to be here. What's that?
KG was
he was not. He knew right away he was not putting these there's no way he was putting LeBron on that list. Once I saw anything about this, like there's no shot. All right, so here's my all-time starting 5. I'm going LeBron, Steph, Michael, Larry Bird, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, LeBron, Steph, and Jordan were the locks for me. Those were the locks for me. LeBron, Steph couldn't keep LeBron and Jordan off. Obviously, Steph is the greatest shooter of all time. He's running 2 guard though. Bron's running the point here. And I thought I honestly, Bird was a lock for me on this because Bird is just one of the greatest playmakers ever. This is not me pandering to Donnie. That's what everybody's gonna think this is. Not at all. Neither of us have ever seen Larry Bird actually play. So there's no pandering here. I don't know anything more than that. I just don't think. I think Bird's a better shooter than Magic. He was who I was kind of considering. Other than that, better shooter. He's a great playmaker. He could just fit in wherever you needed him to. Like whoever's going off on that night, Bird's going to figure it out and start feeding them wherever they need it. And I've just always thought LeBron and Bird on a team would just be, I mean, the passing and the shit that could happen there. Crazy. So Bird's playing the 4. This is where I got caught up. I almost had Tim Duncan on here instead of Kareem. Yeah. But I couldn't take Kareem off.
I thought about Timmy D too.
Kareem is just, he might be the GOAT that no one talks about. And I'm like, every time we bring up anybody brings up a GOAT conversation, as much as I'll argue either whatever side, I'm like, you know what? Like Kareem might just be like the best argument for it. So he has to be in there too. Duncan's first off the bench though, for sure. He's the big rotation. And then probably Kobe. Kobe was probably the other. Kobe was the person I was considering instead of Steph, but I can't not put Steph on the floor. That would just be crazy to not have him there. But that's what I'm going with. What about you, Dunny?
So my starting 5 is Steph at the 1, Kobe, Bean, Bryant at the 2. I agree with KG there, but I am not leaving out Jordan. I got MJ at the 3. I don't care. Michael can play small forward. He can play wherever he wants. He'll be fine. I got Hakeem Olajuwon at the 4.
There we go.
And then I'll mix it up because I couldn't decide, and you took Kareem. I'll go Shaq at the 5.
Shaq and Hakeem are gonna kill people.
That's what I mean, because
Isaiah Stewart's not coming after them.
Overkill if I did Kareem and Hakeem. because like they're just like that skill set would just be like forget about it. I was thinking about doing that, but I kind of wanted the shiftiness of Hakeem and also the defense, and then just the dominance of Shaq, and again the defense at the 5. And then I think my first 3 was Steph, Kobe, and Jordan. Those really can't be argued. I also left out LeBron, which was tough. But I wanted Kobe and Jordan both in there. So that's why. And then I wanted to do actual traditional bigs as my bigs. So that's my process. Obviously, I wouldn't be mad if this was Steph, Jordan, LeBron, Hakeem, Shaq. But yeah,
I think Kobe and Jordan on the court would be Kobe, Jordan, and Steph on the court would be hilarious. Could you imagine the looks those guys would give each other at some of the shots they're taking? Like it would be
but like
Kobe and Jordan would just like take the ball from each other and just start posting up, and just Steph's just standing there wide open, like waiting for 3. There would be some really, really fun moments if things weren't going right. I'm sure things would be going right a lot of times if those 3 were ever on the floor together at any time. I like it though. I like it. You can't argue with that. You can't argue with that starting 5.
After I listened to KG's just always gets me fired up no matter what he's saying. But after I listened to his, I wanted to throw him in mine. And then I started thinking about it. And then I was like, oh wait, like Duncan and Dirk, like those guys are arguably better than KG. And then I was like, wait, think back even further. Hakeem, Kareem, Shaq, like all these bigs, I think deserve it more than my guy Kevin Garnett. Hopefully, he never sees me slandering him like this because I love Kevin Garnett.
He'll understand. I think
nothing but great things to say. I also love that like his basis of his list was just like everyone being dogs. He's like, and that's why he had Kobe instead of Jordan. Like, not that it even makes sense at all, but like in a way, I kind of know what he means. Like, Jordan was more gifted, and like he was his airness, and I mean he's the GOAT, right? He was the GOAT like while he was playing, like it was just undeniable. MJ was a god basically, but Kobe was like different. He had the skill set, and then he was also like rip your head off, like literally said that he listens to the Michael Myers theme song before games sometimes. Like if that's purely what KG's list was based around, then it makes sense in that sense if you follow there. But
for sure,
I mean, super controversial list from KG, but far from the most controversial thing that Kevin Garnett has said. I'm glad we got our list out there too. That was a fun little thing.
Yes, sir. All right, well, that'll about do it for us today then. So for Donovan Holden here, this is Jake Micah. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1. Subscribe to the Happy Hour Hoops podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And everybody who's out there who watches this show, listens to the show, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your family. We're thankful for basketball, thankful for Happy Hour Hoops. Enjoy football, enjoy food. Whatever you do, have fun with it. Have a happy Thanksgiving from us and from Trainwreck Sports. Have a great week, folks. Next week, I guess we got Warriors Suns on Tuesday that we're going to be hyping up.
Maybe we'll be here for a little preview before the pod.
We might need to. Yeah, maybe it's a night game. We might just come back. I think we should if I'm not asleep, if you're not asleep, because that's late.
We'll have something for you guys.
We'll have something though. We'll figure out something. Warriors Suns next Tuesday night. That'll be fun. So yeah, lock it in here every Tuesday. Happy Hour Hoops. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a good night.
Later.